Day one of the 2024 NFL draft concluded last night. A lot of weird, crazy stuff happened. A lot of stuff I wasn't expecting. I'm just going to go over each pick in the first round, talk about how I feel about it, and give a grade on it. So let's just get right into it. Starting with pick 1, Caleb Williams. I both don't want to spend too much time on this, but also I don't want to just keep skipping over it. I feel like I always kind of gleam over this first pick with Caleb Williams a lot. This was expected. Everyone knew it was happening, but I think Bears fans, you have a lot to look forward to. You should be really excited about this, especially with the pick we'll get into later from them. A lot to look forward. He's going to have a really impressive year, and with all that they've done to adjust the roster and fix the team for him and just make that the perfect location, I think Caleb Williams is going to have a fantastic rookie year. Next pick with Jaden Daniels. Now, here's the thing with this one. So I do like Jaden Daniels. I'm a little bit against the grain, a little bit against consensus. I had Drake 2 as my quarterback 2. Okay, here's the deal with Jaden Daniels, in my opinion. I gave my quarterback rankings, and I put Drake May and Jaden Daniels in the same tier. That's changed, and I should have updated that, but I just didn't get around to it, unfortunately. I like Drake May more than Jaden Daniels, and I don't think Washington's going to regret it. I think Jaden Daniels is going to be fine there, but given the circumstance and the team that they have, the coaching and everything, and how quality a prospect and player Jaden Daniels is, I really would have preferred Drake May. If I was the Commanders GM, I would have taken him, but I'm not. So being honest and true about this grade, I'm going to give it a B, honestly. I like Jaden Daniels. I don't know if I love him as the number 2 player in this really, really good class, and I don't really like him as number 2 quarterback. So just being honest with it, it's a B. People are going to hate me for it, but that's how I feel. And then on to the Patriots. I'll give this one an A with Drake May. Like I just said, I think he's a better quarterback and a better prospect than Jaden Daniels is. The roster has a lot of problems and a lot of holes to fill, but when you have a guy like Drake May that should develop well, you have Jacoby Brissett who you can play for a while, you don't have to start Drake May immediately. The situation isn't fantastic, but I do think people are overlooking the Patriots roster just a bit. I know it was a total train wreck this last season, but they did have a lot of injuries. I think that defense is definitely going to step it up. I still think they're going to be able to find really good talent in terms of weapons and playmakers for the offense in the second round. We'll see how that goes today. I'm filming this on day 2 before the second round and third round of the draft, so we'll see what they do. I'll give them an A under the caveat that they address playmakers and receivers at some point. Maybe they even trade up to like 33 or something and take like Adonai Mitchell. I think the Bills will probably snipe them. We'll see how that goes, but Drake May, I'm happy with giving an A. I think he's we knew the Patriots were going to take a quarterback, I think. And I've kind of been on the fence with it a lot. In terms of knowing what they are going to do versus what I would do, I've kind of been a little bit more on the side of if Marvin Harrison is there, I feel like you should take him. But also in a lot of my mocks, I didn't have Drake May at 3, and I like him a little bit more, so I feel like an A is totally appropriate. And then for the Cardinals, Marvin Harrison Jr., this was another one of those picks where it was like, I don't know if this is going to happen because, according to how I was doing mock drafts, I had Marvin Harrison going at 3 sometimes and a little bit earlier. And I also had the Cardinals trading back. But this is what they wanted from the very start. Since the college season ended, since Marvin Harrison was shining like last year, this is what the Cardinals were hoping for. As soon as they knew they had a pick that was like top 4, this is what they wanted, and they got it. This has to be an A+. Huge fan of this. I think he fits their scheme really well, too. He's going to be the boundary deep ball guy. They're going to use him in a lot of other ways than just straight-up fades and stretches down the fields. He's a really good route runner. His catch radius is phenomenal. Ball tracking is phenomenal. He isn't the best after the catch. I think Malik Neighbors is definitely better in that regard, but he checks just about every other box as a receiver. On to pick 5 with Joe Alt. Listen, I'm not incredibly worried that they didn't get a receiver here. You can get a receiver later if you really want, but this is just the dude. I think this might be one of, positional value aside, and left tackle is highly valued. But even that aside, this was easily like a top 3 player in this class for me. Joe Alt. I'll give this pick an A+, I think. Could they have gone Malik Nabers here? Yeah, and I wouldn't have given that a bad grade either, but what you've done is you've given a quarterback like Justin Herbert all the time in the pocket to throw. Who is he throwing to? That's a little bit tough. But don't forget, Joshua Palmer is still a quality receiver. We'll see how Quentin Johnson pans out. I still believe in him to do better than he did last season, at least. At least Brandon Staley is out of the building. I think he'll do a little bit better. And they have an early pick in the second round, too, so I think they're going to fix the receiver aspect. I don't mind them not going receiver here. Joe Alt is literally the best tackle prospect I think I've seen since Penei Sewell, probably. And high floor, high upside. I genuinely think Joe Alt is going to be in the NFL for the next 15 years, and we're just going to know him as consistently being a top 8 tackle at the minimum. So you can't argue with a pick like that. It doesn't really matter what your need is. Their offensive line is going to be great, and hopefully they'll address receiver, and they have some other things on defense they'll have to address, but you can't get them all in one draft, and I think adding a player like Joe Alt to this team is going to greatly affect them in a positive manner. So A+ for that. And then 6, Malik Nabers. I love this pick too. I mean, these first 7, the first 6 were pretty chalk of the picks in this draft, but Malik Nabers, I'm fine with giving this an A as well. The receiving core needs a lot of help. I don't like Daniel Jones. I made that clear. But I also wasn't necessarily on board with them getting a quarterback. So not taking him down here. I wouldn't really have wanted J.J. McCarthy or anything. It might have worked out. Yeah, let's finally get some playmakers on here. Let's see what Daniel Jones can do. We already have him on contract. We'll see how it goes with him. But Malik Nabers to the Giants, another kind of player that I see being in the NFL for a while and probably on the Giants for a while. I imagine he'll impress enough to earn himself a second contract. That's really far down the road, but just in terms of his ability as a playmaker, I mean, with these receivers, I kind of always had Marvin 1 and expected him to go 1, but I mean, I kind of lumped them all up in a similar group with like Rome Odunze, Malik Nabers, and Marvin Harrison. It was just like, whatever your scheme needs, just take that guy, unless you have the ability to take Marvin Harrison. They're 3 phenomenal receivers. Easily, all 3 of them deserve to be in the top 10. In terms of how Malik Nabers fits into the Giants, this isn't anything necessarily new to them. They have had, I wouldn't say Malik Nabers is a smaller receiver, but he isn't the same as Rome Odunze and Marvin Harrison in terms of his frame and stature. But 6 foot, about 200 pounds. That's bringing a little bit more size compared to what you have in the room, and it's also bringing a level of explosiveness that this receiving room just hasn't seen since OBJ. Love Malik Nabers, and I think that's going to work out well. On to number 7. This is probably going to be my first more very negative pick. I mean, I said Jaden Daniels was a B, but the Titans, look, they missed out on Joe Alt, and that wasn't too incredibly shocking that he wouldn't be there, but I think they had other options here. In terms of how I feel about J.C. Latham, I think if you don't move him to guard, I think he's going to bust if you don't put him at guard, if I'm being honest. I don't think he has the movement skills to play out wide at tackle. And the thing with the Titans is that's what they needed more specifically than anything else was a tackle, not just an offensive lineman. They could have used someone like Talaise Fuanga, but tackle was their biggest need, and I don't really see a world where J.C. Latham... I mean, that's wrong. A world where J.C. Latham doesn't work out as tackle is wrong. He's like 6'7", 350 pounds. He's massive. And I'm sure they'll figure out a way to make it work at some point, but I wouldn't just bet on it working immediately. So I don't know what they're going to do with the rest of their offensive line, who's going where. Peter Skoronski, who they drafted last year, has some flexibility. But I don't even think J.C. Latham, and this is my personal stuff and how I see these players, I didn't see him as a top 10, even top 15 player. I saw him more being like a, back half 16 to 32 player. Obviously, the league had a different opinion on him, and I understand that the Titans have Bill Callahan, the offensive line coach, that is supposed to be really good, and he is very good, but there's some things with J.C. Latham that you just can't fix, just with his movement skills in general. You can try to take some weight off of him and stuff, but it's not all like mental stuff and technique. It's like he really just doesn't have the ability to cut off inside moves and regroup if he gets beat. Like, his counter struggles. He's not as big of a mauler in the run game as you'd like him to be with his size. I think he definitely flashes and has some plays where you do see that 6'7", 300 and whatever pound frame like dominate, and then you have some plays where he's getting beat by guys like 2/3 his size pretty handedly in the run game, especially by some of the guys that were drafted in this class that he should have been able to take care of a little better. So I'm not the highest on J.C. Latham. I'm curious to see how he'll fit on that team. In terms of a grade, I'm probably going to go with like a D+ here. I'm going to be a little bit harsh on this. I don't think he was a top 10 player. I see the upside in him, but I know that the Titans' number one need was tackle, and they got a tackle, so that's good. I think they got the wrong one. And, with Joe Alt not being on the board, if you don't see the value in taking a Troy Fatanu, Talaise Fuanga, or whatever, trade back. I'm sure there's plenty of people that would have wanted to trade up here. There's still some quarterbacks on the board. I mean, and we'll talk about this in a second, but quarterback goes the very next pick, so I'm sure someone would have given a decent amount of value to trade up to that spot. So yeah, we'll go D+. And then we've got another negative grade, probably. This is the highlight of the evening, what everyone's talking about. Michael Penix Jr. to the Atlanta Falcons. So in terms of just evaluating the pick, the player, and everything, I don't mind it. Probably would give it like a B or something like that. In a world where they didn't sign Kirk Cousins at all, it might even be like an A- or something like that. I don't know. But I didn't have Michael Penix rated that high, but you got to value quarterbacks a little bit differently, so I wouldn't have minded him going at 8. And I like the fit of him going to the Falcons, and I might be wrong about this, but isn't Michael Penix from Atlanta, like, originally? Okay, Michael Penix isn't from Atlanta. He's from Florida, similar area, but no, I like that fit, and I like that idea. It's the Kirk Cousins that's the problem. The deal just makes no sense. If this was like a Geno Smith deal, and, talking about Geno Smith, the Seahawks are one of those teams who I know made propositions to the Falcons to trade up for this pick. That situation would have made a lot more sense. Having a quarterback, someone like Geno Smith, who's on, 2 years left on his deal, I think, and based off the structure of his deal, it's pretty reasonable that you can cut him or trade him after this season. A situation like this makes a million times more sense than signing Kirk Cousins to a 4-year, $180 million, $100 million guaranteed contract. And a lot of people are saying, like, Kirk Cousins, he's coming off torn Achilles, and he's aging. Like, he could get hurt, and at least they have Penix now. I get that. But then that means you're admitting that you signed a quarterback to a contract like that could get hurt. So the issue here is just entirely with the Kirk Cousins contract, in my opinion. And I just don't understand making both of these moves. I understand wanting to follow in line with what the Packers and the Patrick Mahomes, Alex Smith situation. I've been on board with that. I've been for a while saying that is a method and a strategy that seems to be very effective. Off the top of my head, I can't think of recent years where someone's done that and it hasn't worked out to some degree. Taking a quarterback when you already have one who's a little bit older and sitting that young quarterback for a year, 2 or 3 or whatever. I like that. But we're talking about Michael Penix Jr., who is going to be 24 when he's playing, and also isn't a quarterback that I watched thinking he needs to sit for a while. I watched J.J. McCarthy and thought he needs to sit for a while. I then watched Jaden Daniels and thought it would probably be best if he sit for a little bit. Not forever, but for a little while. Michael Penix was one of those quarterbacks that I felt like I was pretty confident in his floor and his ability to come in the NFL and do pretty well, especially with his age. If you aren't ready to start as a 24-year-old, that's where we have problems. I don't have problems with someone's age as a quarterback. I don't think it matters that much. I have problems if you're a 24-year-old quarterback that it's like, we're going to have to sit you for a couple years. What do you mean we got to sit you for a couple years? You just played 6 years in college football, so I don't think this is the same thing as the Packers. Because, again, if we want to talk about the Packers, they took Jordan Love in the 20s, too. That was one of the other things. He was also younger. I think he was 21 at the time. Michael Penix is about the age that Jordan Love was while starting for the first time. So we've got Kirk Cousins on this 4-year deal. Let's say they still do 3 years. They want 3 years out of Kirk, and then they want Penix in, right? Based off the contract, that's probably like the best we can do without either cutting Kirk and taking a huge cap hit or just letting $50 million sitting on the bench. The best we have is 3 years. Michael Penix is going to be 27 at that time. This, to me, isn't a guy that needs to sit that long. If you wanted to take, like, J.J. McCarthy, maybe I'd have a little bit of a different opinion on it. I don't necessarily have McCarthy that much higher than Penix. It's just kind of about, I look at J.J. McCarthy as a player that could benefit from sitting behind a quarterback like Kirk Cousins for a couple of years. And, to me, this is kind of a flop by the Falcons. I think when it's all said and done, I don't think we're going to look at this and say this was the worst pick of all time. But I do think we're going to have questions about the value of the number 8 pick, where I know multiple teams were willing to trade up quite a bit to get someone, and you would have to go to the Raiders at 13. You'd have to move back 5 spots. The Seahawks were one of those teams at 16 that we're talking about. Like, that's not moving back to pick 40 or something. You're moving back 5 spots. The first defensive player that was taken was 15 with Leatu Latu, which you totally could have just taken at 8 or traded back to an area like that and taken him. Like, there were plenty of guys on the board on defense available, so it just made no sense to me. I'm going to give this a D-. I don't know if I already gave a grade, but off the top of my head, I'll give it a D-. It's not an F because I think Penix is a good quarterback, and, the Falcons have had quarterback needs for a while, so I'm glad that they're finally addressing it. It's just they're doing it in a very unorthodox and non-value-centered manner, I guess. Yeah, we're talking about the 8th pick here. This is a top 10 pick in one of the most stacked draft classes since, like, what was a really good class? Was it like 2014 or 13? Was that the one with like Aaron Donald and OBJ and everything? Like, this is a lot of value. There's a lot of really good, high-quality players in this class. And when you have a quarterback like Kirk Cousins on a 4-year deal with a lot of money on the line, I just don't see a world where this was the most logical thing for them to do. So, yeah, D- for that one. I'm going to try to speed these up a little bit. On to number 9, Romo Dunes. I love how he fits into this offense. There's a lot of things they could have done with this pick. At the end of the day, you did just invest a number 1 pick into, hopefully, the quarterback of the future and someone you think could be like a potential Hall of Famer. In that event, I totally see it as fine to get a receiver like Romo Dunes. I also see Romo Dunes as a receiver that could go, I was totally fine with going in the top 10, top 6 or whatever. and they get him at 9, so I think they had pretty good value there. They didn't have to trade that or anything. He just kind of fell to them. And with Keenan Allen, with his age and his injury risk, and the fact that you do have to look towards the future, this is going to be a really solid pick for them. I think it's going to turn out really well. All right, moving on to pick 10, the Vikings. JJ McCarthy. I don't have a problem with this pick at all. For a while, people were talking about the Vikings trading up to get JJ McCarthy, and I was like, please don't trade up to number 3 and trade your 2 first-round picks away for that. He's not worth that at all. And I was thinking, like, I could see a situation where they trade up to like 7 or 8 or whatever. Those were a couple of the spots I liked. They did need to trade up and not burn that pick 23, just use 11. They ended up trading from 11 to 10, so they didn't give up much to get him. And this is what we're talking about. This is how I like quarterback development and value going. You get Sam Darnold on that deal. We're going to let him start and play it out. They haven't announced a starter yet. Obviously, they just drafted him, but I'm going to guess Sam Darnold is going to be the starter. Perfect situation. I think he really matches that scheme and the team really well. The Vikings needed a quarterback, so I have no issues with this. I'll probably give it an A-, honestly. I like McCarthy. I think he's going to do fine there as long as they don't throw him to the Wolves immediately. On to pick 11. I think this one was really underrated. The Jets take Olu Fashanu. Fantastic tackle. Really good athlete. Phenomenal pass protector. Average prospect in terms of run blocking. Yeah, he does a lot of things really well, and he has some special characteristics about him, especially like his anchor and pass protection against bull rushes and power. Phenomenal leg strength, lower body strength in general. Just he's got tree trunks that can lock down any pass rusher, and that's going to be a big deal in this division. That's a big deal with Aaron Rodgers. There's a lot of things they could have done here, and I don't have a problem with them going Olu Fashanu. Yeah, you address the offensive line in free agency. You got some older guys. You also have some guys with some that aren't going to play the whole season. So when one of them goes down, you probably are only able to plug Olu Fashanu at left or right tackle, probably just left. But at the end of the day, you got a phenomenal player at pick 11 that is going to be on your offensive line probably for a very long time, and it's going to be more effective in this window you have with Aaron Rodgers. So the Olu Fashanu pick, I'll give an A. And then Bo Nix. This is one I'll talk a little bit more about some of the spots I was right in and some of the spots I wasn't. But Bo Nix at 12th. I was saying this from the beginning that, or for a while, I was saying I feel like the Broncos are just going to sit at 12 and take Bo Nix. They're not going to really trade up or trade back or anything. They're just going to sit right there and take him. And that's exactly what they did. And I think this is a great pick for them. It's hard not to give it an A+. Not because Bo Nix is like a game changer and now they're like, Super Bowl. They got their Super Bowl odds went up or anything like that. It's just more about like, what else were they going to do, Yeah, you could have taken some of these really awesome and really good playmakers that would have helped the team in positions of need, but you don't have a quarterback at all. Like, there's no quarterback on this team worth starting. People are mentioning Zach Wilson. We got to wait and see if he makes the team. That's where my head is at. Does he make the roster? So any talks of like, let's see how Zach Wilson plays out, why take Bo Nix or whatever, that's ridiculous to me. Let's see if he's the third quarterback on this roster before we start talking about that. Now, in terms of Bo Nix in this offense, I think him and Sean Payton are going to get along really well. I think Sean Payton didn't really like playing with Russell Wilson, and it just wasn't a scheme fit. Sean Payton wanted Russell Wilson to do the stuff that he normally does. He wants to hit stuff open over the middle. He wants to hit stuff with rhythm and timing. He wants quick stuff underneath and hitches and all that, and that's not really Russell Wilson's game. He likes extending plays a little bit more, a lot more play action, shots to the outside. He hates throwing over the middle, and that's not Bo Nix. Bo Nix, I don't think I want to directly compare Bo Nix to Drew Brees. I don't see that kind of upside, but I do see kind of that similar role as to what Sean Payton was doing with Drew Brees in New Orleans. And I think he's going to fit that scheme really well. He's probably going to start this year, and I don't think it's going to go fantastic, but I do think people are going to be surprised by Bo Nix. I think there's kind of a negative connotation with him for some reason. I like Bo Nix a lot. I'll give this an A. I won't give it quite an A+, because I don't think this is like a game changer for them. I think it's a little bit of an A, because what else were you going to do? So that's my thoughts on Bo Nix. Now, with pick 13, the Raiders, this one was a little weird, and it was something I've thought about a few times, but never really committed to. It's Brock Bowers to the Raiders. I don't hate it. I also don't love it. Here's the thing about this. I know they took Michael Mayer last year. I don't think Brock Bowers is going to eat into his reps at all. I think you're going to get Brock Bowers and Michael Mayer and Devontae Adams and Jacoby Meyer on the field at the same time, probably most of the time, because I think you can use Brock Bowers just about everywhere on the offense. You can put him in the slot, you can put him at H-back, you can put him at Y, you can stick him at tight end if you want. He still has some good size and is still a good run blocker. I think it's a disservice to him to just stick him at an inline tight end. I look at Brock Bowers, I see a fullback, I see a slot receiver, I see all those other things I listed. So I don't think they're eating into each other's reps. My thing a little bit more with the Raiders is there's a lot of really good offensive linemen on this board. There's a lot of really good cornerbacks on this board, and I saw those as a little bit bigger of a need. Clearly, they tried to trade up for a quarterback, so anyone that wants to diss them for that, they just weren't able to do that. You can't say much about it. They could have given up more value in those trade proposals to try to get one, but I wasn't on board with them getting a quarterback this year at all anyways. They're sitting at 13. The best I was thinking they were going to get would be like Michael Penix Jr. or like Bo Nix. And, I talked about how I do like those guys, but I don't think they were game changers enough. And when you have a guy like Gardner Minshew and Aiden O'Connell, who at least has some experience on this team, it doesn't make the most sense to take another guy that's just kind of going to be in that mix anyways. So if they could have gotten, one of these top-end guys, they could have traded to number 3 to get Drake May. Maybe I would have felt different about it, but then at that point, if you're trading to 3, you're probably giving up a lot of draft capital. And I don't think they need to do that. I don't think this team is quite ready for a quarterback. I think this Raiders team is just starting to establish and figure out a culture with Antonio Pierce. I don't know why I forgot his name. I love Antonio Pierce. They're just starting to figure all that stuff out. They have some pieces they like. Obviously, Devontae Adams is phenomenal. Max Crosby, Malcolm Kuntz popped out really strong last year. Nate Hobbs is a solid corner. They have some pieces, but overall, this roster needs a lot of help. And I was hoping to see maybe an offensive line pick. That, to me, seemed like, hey, we're not going to take a quarterback this year. Let's get the offensive lineman now that we want to help protect him. And they didn't do that, but they still got a really good playmaker. I can't squash on it too hard. I'll give the Brock Bowers pick a B. I think they could have made some more worthy picks, but I'm a fan of it still. I think it's going to turn out well. Then on to 14 with Talieise Fuanga. Another pick that I don't have an incredibly strong opinion. They needed a tackle. I figured they would go offensive line. I really like Talieise Fuanga. The only kind of issue I have, and kind of similar to what I said with the Titans, but not to that extent, they needed a tackle specifically more than anything. They have some of the interior guys. I think it was left tackle more than anything that they really wanted. Now, do you have a really high quality pass protecting left tackle available? I don't know. I don't think you really do. Maybe Amarius Mims, who I see as a little bit more of a project anyways, but Talieise Fuanga, I think, is a phenomenal player. I think he's going to be fine if they keep him at tackle. The only thing I have with him is, to me, Talieise Fuanga is a good tackle. I'm kind of projecting. He's a good tackle. I think you got an all-pro guard in him. I think you have a top, probably 10 guard in the NFL within a couple years with him if you just keep him at guard or whatever. So that's my only thing with him. I would have preferred if a team looked at Fuanga and evaluated him more as a guard, but you're still filling a need. I still think he's gonna be a good tackle. So I don't have like a lot of problems with it. I feel like this one is. I'll give this a B plus actually. Yeah, that just me trying to nitpick and find whatever I can with it. And then at pick 15, we get our first defensive player off the board, and this is another one that I kind of called in some ways. I didn't project the Colts to do this necessarily, but I was thinking Leatu Latu was going to be the first edge rusher off the board for a while. Not necessarily first defensive player, but this is a position of need. It is a player I see as a top 10 player in this class. I think Leatu Latu probably has the highest floor for any defensive player in this class, and then most offensive players, honestly. He's got it figured out. I'm not eliminating and saying that he shouldn't work harder, try to develop or anything. He's young and needs to do that still, but he's coming into the NFL at a really good spot already. Pass rushing tool set is phenomenal. I'm personally not worried about the health. I've seen some people, some people weren't willing to take him in the top 10 in mock drafts and stuff, or didn't see him that way. I get it, and I'm not going to argue with you about it. If you don't want to take a player that had to medically retire because of that, you don't want to take them early. I get it, and I'm not going to, squash anyone's opinion for that. But to me, I looked at Leatu Latu and said, medically retired a few years ago. Since he came back, hasn't had any injuries with the neck or really anything else at all that I can come up with when I was looking over his profile. I didn't really have any other injury history other than that. And then there were also reports that the doctors that medically retired him were probably being a little bit over precautious, and that made sense to me, especially when you consider that he's been entirely healthy this whole time. And then he goes to the combine, tests, medicals and everything came out positive, and that he didn't have any of those issues. So to me, it was kind of it's kind of egregious to look at a player that should go in the top 10 and not take them in the top 10 just because of the medical retiring. And it's like, I don't think he's an injury prone player or has an injury risk even. And to me, to look at the medical retiring and just saying, how can you say he doesn't have those risks when he had to medically retire? You're not really looking at it with a lot of nuance. That's just my opinion. Really love Leatu Latu, and that was a need for the team. I'll give this pick an A as well. And then to pick 16, another stunner. They weren't able to get a quarterback, and that was fine. I didn't think the Seahawks had to get a quarterback, but if they could have, it would have been cool. In terms of the Seahawks drafting Byron Murphy, I didn't give a defensive tackle ranking, but I did watch a lot of the film, obviously, and Byron Murphy and Jerzon Newton were pretty close, but both of them I viewed as easy top 20 players, and given how the value of defensive tackle has gone up, I wouldn't have been shocked if either of those guys went within the top 15. Byron Murphy, especially with Mike Macdonald in this as the new head coach, the scheme there is going to be phenomenal. He's going to slide right in. I'm not going to make this call right now necessarily, but I'm going to do predictions, award predictions and stuff at some point. I'm going to bet Byron Murphy is going to be my defensive rookie of the year prediction. The quality of team, the scheme and everything that Mike Macdonald is going to bring, the other playmakers that are around, the other really good athletes that the Seahawks have on the defense, all the way from the line to the secondary. I think Byron Murphy's going to have a great year, probably get himself about 7 sacks and do really well in run defense, even as a rookie defensive tackle, which you don't see too often. But this is a guy I could definitely see having a big year as a rookie, straight out. I'll give them an A as well. Because the only reason I wouldn't give it an A+, and I'm a little hesitant on the A, is I thought offensive line, especially interior offensive line, was a really big need. And I know they don't like drafting that early. But if I was here looking at 16, me personally, I might have just taken Troy Fatanu, who I'm a really big fan of. And that's a little bit tough because I don't even see Troy Fautanu as a guard necessarily. But anyways, yeah, I'll give it an A still for Byron Murphy, because that definitely would have been the other thing I would be considering at that spot. Now, 17, Dallas Turner. The Vikings traded up to get him. I don't know exactly what they used to trade up, but from what I heard, it was a decent amount of value. It wasn't like a complete overshoot, but it was a decent amount of value they gave up. Regardless, if I'm a Vikings fan, I'm leaving this draft with J.J. McCarthy and Dallas Turner. I'm pretty happy about that. You just got rid of Danielle Hunter. Didn't want to pay him. Finding his replacement like this so quick and easy in the draft, while you can also still get your QB of the future, phenomenal work from them. I don't care that even if it did cost a little bit too much to get Dallas Turner, sometimes the best thing for teams to do in the draft is just go get 2 or 3 really high quality players and not worry about filling out the rest of the roster. And I could see the Vikings being one of those teams. They'll obviously address some more issues that they have later in the draft. We'll see later in the evening today, but Dallas Turner is going to fit perfectly in this scheme. And speaking of Danielle Hunter and him, like, I do see some parallels there. I don't necessarily see him being the exact same player, but we're talking about pretty crazy athletes and guys with really high upside. Through a lot of this process, I kind of was saying, like, I think Leatu Latu's better, and there's a conversation with him, Jared Verse and Dallas Turner in terms of who's better. And I didn't think Dallas Turner was a player I would take in, like, the top 10. But I didn't have, like, anything negative to say with the Vikings trading up to take him here. Like, this to me is, like, what his value was this whole time. And according to his film and his measurables and athleticism and projection and stuff, I see them taking at 17 as a pretty good deal for them. So this is right about what his value is. Honestly, I feel like I'll give this an A as well for them. The Vikings draft in the first round is probably an A+ overall. I mean, they stuck the landing on both picks. You traded up to get your second guy in Dallas Turner, but I don't have a problem with it. 18, Amarius Mims. I'm probably going to just be tossing out a good amount of A's here. People are going to be questioning it. I really like this pick. And this is what I've been saying for a while for the Bengals, is how long are we going to talk about them having needs on the offensive line? So they go out in free agency and sign a set of pretty good tackles. I like that. That's a big deal. I'm not the hugest fan of Trent Brown or Orlando Brown. I like them. I don't think that duo is instantly the best in the NFL. I think those are solid tackles, but just because they're big, I don't think that means that they're, like, the best in the league. And those guys, you know, I don't know what their contracts and futures are looking like exactly, but we got Amarius Mims coming in right after one of them leaves. I'm totally happy with it. You're probably going to get all 3 of them on the field at the same time and just keep Amarius Mims at guard. They have some need interior as well. I feel pretty confident in giving this pick an A as well. Huge fan of Amarius Mims and his size, how he's going to fit into this team. Obviously, the Bengals have a type that they like at tackle, and it's large. Jared Verse at 19. I've predicted this happening a few times, and as much as I do like it, and I don't think it was like a wasted or bad pick, I'm probably going to give it a B-. We're going to have to wait and see how he fits in that scheme and how they use him. To me, Jared Verse is obviously more comfortable playing with his hand in the dirt and being a true edge rusher and not really dropping into coverage all that much and playing as, like, more of that outside linebacker role that the Rams do. That's the defense they play in. And I'm interested to see how he'll fit in. I think they got a really good player at good value. I'll give it a B. I'll change it. I think I said a B-. I'll give it a B. I like the Jared Verse pick. There are other options here they could have done, though. Like, you know, you could consider corner Quinyon Mitchell, who apparently no one was as high on as I thought they would be. Yeah, and you probably wouldn't want to go with any of the other edge rushers, but I would have liked Jerzon Newton here as well. So they could have done some other stuff here. At the end of the day, I think they got a really good player at pretty good value as well. So I can't hate on it too much, but just based on the scheme and everything, I'll stick at a B with it. And then for the Steelers at 20, they went ahead and grabbed themselves Troy Fautanu. In my opinion, Troy Fautanu is... I don't know what he'll end up playing, but I think he actually profiles better as a guard just based off his skill set. I don't like that everyone looks at guards and tackles and just say like, if you're bigger and longer, you're a tackle. If you're a little bit shorter and smaller, you're a guard. Like, I think of it almost in the inverse sometimes. I think you need to be a little bit stockier and thicker to play guard, and you don't need as much movement skills at guard. Troy Fautanu has just about 33-inch length arms, which is kind of the threshold for tackle. It's just about there. I think he's like 6'3", 320. Maybe I can see this right here with what I'm looking at. 6'4", 317. So he's a little bit undersized. But to me, he is a tackle just based off of his movement skills. His feet are phenomenal. He has some of the best footwork as a offensive lineman in this class, genuinely. I do think you can put him at guard, though, and I think he'll do fine. And I don't know exactly how the Steelers are going to use him, but another kind of situation to Jared Verse a little bit where it's like you got a really good player with good value. I don't care that much about all the specific scheme fits and everything. So, and this is a really big need for them on that offensive line. In terms of like the value and everything, you could have talked me into them taking Quinyon Mitchell for sure. Could have talked me into Brian Thomas Jr., Graham Barton. I've been mocking and really hoping Jackson Powers Johnson would go here just because it feels perfect to me. That feels like the exact player that the exact team that Jackson Powers Johnson would be on. Just felt like the right kind of culture. I don't know. He just played a certain way that the Steelers like. But I love Troy Fautanu as well. I mean, there were a lot of really good tackles and like offensive linemen. Just a lot of really good offensive linemen in this class. So I don't have any problems with them. The Steelers just going ahead and getting that one. So we'll give let's go with a B+ for the Steelers. 21 with the Dolphins, Chop Robinson. I wasn't as big of a fan on this pick. I've been a little bit lower on Chop Robinson through this whole process. Kind of looking at him as more of a late first round. I mean, we're at pick 21, so it's not early. But I was looking at him. I really was thinking if any team is going to take him in the first round, it's going to be the Lions at 29. And then other than that, I was like, maybe the Buccaneers. But after that point, I feel as if I would have preferred him going in the second round. I see the upside. I see the athleticism and everything. He has a lot to work on, though. A lot. He is raw as they come. We'll see how it works out. I thought for sure that the Dolphins were going to go either offensive line, and when you have, Graham Barton on the board, Jordan Morgan still here, Jackson Powers Johnson still here, and then you go to the interior defensive line, Jerson Newton is also here, corners available, there's a lot of other routes they could have gone, and adding another pass rusher is great. I don't know the future of their pass rushing room in terms of Bradley Chubb, and I know they're seeing injuries there. Van Ginkel just left. Jalen Phillips has some injury issues. So I get wanting to add more edge rusher depth, but this offensive line also deals with a lot of injuries and has holes, and Tua is not going to do well under that much pressure. And we'll just have to see how it goes, but I'm going to give that a C-. And then Quinyon Mitchell to the Eagles. How do we let this happen every year? I totally was expecting Quinyon Mitchell to be like a top 15 pick, and he just straight up falls into the Eagles' lap at 22. It's an A+. I don't even want to talk about it anymore. This one pisses me off. Why do we let this happen? The Eagles, according to the roster, have one need. They had one need. It was cornerback. And the league just let them get the best one in the class. I mentioned Byron Murphy getting Defensive Rookie of the Year. I'm not going to be surprised if Quinyon Mitchell gets it. It very well could. I don't want to talk about this pick anymore. It's an A+. Screw you. Brian Thomas Jr. at 23. They traded back with the Vikings from 17. So this is almost similar to the situation with Michael Penix, where it's I like the pick. I like the fit. This is something I had them picking for a while, actually. I really loved Brian Thomas Jr. and thought this was the perfect player to toss onto the roster and, give Trevor Lawrence even more of a shot. You got to keep investing in on that. After you spend the first pick of the draft on a quarterback like that, you got to keep investing in that as much as you can. So I like it. My issue with it is, why pay two mid as hell receivers, like average receivers, as much money as you did? Which, if I was grading that, I think I did in the free agency recap. If I'm grading that, I'm not giving those signings good grades at all. Why pay Gabe Davis and Christian Kirk and Zay Jones, all these like average receivers? Jesus, they're just like designated 79 overalls on Madden. All these like number 2 to 3 receivers just to go draft Brian Thomas Jr. I don't get it. I want to give this pick like an A- or A or something, but that aspect makes it kind of tough. I'll kind of give this one both grades. No, I'm not going to give this one both grades. I didn't give the Falcons 2 grades, so I'm not going to do that here. I'm going to give this a B- because I still think you got a really good receiver when that is still kind of a need, in my opinion. I think you got a really good receiver too that fits this team really well. And I made the comparison to the Falcons. Well, here's the difference. You can have multiple receivers on the field at the same time. You can rotate receivers in and out for different circumstances. You can't rotate quarterbacks like that. You don't have quarterbacks starting for certain plays unless it's like a super rare and weird occasion. If you are doing that, there's something wrong with your program. You should have one quarterback on the field. So I'm just hating on the Falcons whenever I get the chance. But the Brian Thomas Jr. pick, I really love him. I love how he fits on the scheme. I think it's a need. Just why sign Gabe Davis to a pretty substantial contract and the other guys they have, I don't get. Terrion Arnold, the Lions traded up here to 24 to snag him. He felt like a Lion this whole time. It was just kind of more about, like, is he going to fall there? I don't know. And he fell to 24, and the Lions went ahead and got him. This one's hard to not give an A+ as well. This is, you have a few needs on this team, and corner is definitely one of them, and you filled it with a really good one that matches the culture and methodology of this team just about as good as anyone else in this class. And those are the kind of things that are a big deal for the Lions, is taking guys that match what they want to do and how they want to play football. People that can buy into their plan. And I think Terrion Arnold is going to put every penny he has into what the Lions have going on. That's a really great pick and fit for me. I'm a big fan of Terrion Arnold. And the Lions, to me, at least this year, and there's some other teams that are this way, that when they make a pick, it changes my opinion on that player a little bit. And I can mention this, maybe mention it with like the Chiefs in just a second. But, I wasn't the highest. I didn't have Terrion Arnold at corner 1 or 2. I think I had him at about 3. And I wasn't as high on him as everyone else was. So the fact you do get him at 24, where I think he falls a little bit still, and you are the Lions, and you don't have many other needs, and this is kind of one of the best players available, in my opinion. This is an A+ pick. They knocked it out of the park. Trading up for him, I don't know how much they gave up for it. They moved up 5 spots from the back end of the first round. I don't imagine it was much, but there wouldn't really be too much in my head that would tell me that it would change my opinion on this pick. I think it was just a straight up home run. And then Jordan Morgan to the Packers. I didn't hate it. I didn't love it. It was something I thought could happen, was they go tackle for sure. That was something I was expecting. Or just offensive line in general, because I think Jordan Morgan and the next guy, Graham Barton, that we'll talk about, are kind of like, they're different in their own regards, but I think both of them have flexibility to play inside and out. Now, the thing is, I do look at Graham Barton as a better prospect, and I do think he is even more flexible. I see Jordan Morgan as someone that played tackle, that you're probably going to want to transition to guard. I look at Graham Barton as someone you can put anywhere on the offensive line. Like, I don't think he probably has a position that's his natural position and what he's best at for sure, but I don't think you're doing a disservice to him by using him as a chess piece that you can kind of move around on the offensive line. I think Graham Barton's just a better player in general, and he was on the board here and got taken next, and they went with Jordan Morgan, who I'm not too upset with going at the latter end of the first round of this draft, but there were some other options. Cooper DeJean's also available here, and a lot of people are saying that was just never going to happen because Gutekunst won't make a pick like that. I get it. I don't hate this pick. I'd probably give it probably like a B-. I don't think it was laughable or anything. It's going to benefit like I said, not that you use the number one pick on Jordan Love, but when you have a quarterback like Jordan Love, it is pretty nice to kind of build up his future and the team around him in that regard, and securing that offensive line a little bit more. So I like it. B- is fine. And then Graham Barton to the Buccaneers. I'm a huge fan of Graham Barton. I thought he could have gone even earlier. Phenomenal. Like I said, all 5. I seriously feel like you can put him at all 5. Based off of how his fit or his size and everything, I imagine naturally he's going to be more of an interior player, but you have the flexibility to do whatever you want with him. And the Buccaneers are one of those teams that I struggled with for a while, kind of figuring out what I thought they would do, what would be best for them. I feel that way every year. The Buccaneers are just that team I have trouble connecting with for some reason. I never know what they have going on. I do a little bit more now. I kind of have to, but I struggled for a while really knowing what they should pick. I had them taking Adonai Mitchell. I had them go corner sometimes when that was available. Edge rusher is, a need for them. But I think it was kind of forgotten that offensive line, especially interior offensive line, was a big need for them. They went and got Cody Mock last year. He did pretty solid. Luke Goedeke, the tackle, is impressed. Tristan Wirfs is obviously a dog. And then, you had Ryan Jensen, I'm pretty sure retired and had that big injury last year. Can't put a name or face on anyone else on that offensive line off the top of my head. I think this was a really smart pick from them. I think this is going to turn out really well for them in the future, especially when, you did get Luke Goedeke and Cody Mock already, and they've been kind of developing at their own pace. Now we're tossing another young guy into this situation. All of a sudden, in 2 years, we have 3 we include Tristan Wirfs into this too. We have 4 offensive linemen that we're ready and willing to pay, that are really solid. Hopefully, I project them all to do pretty well, that are young and, under probably about 26, 27 at that time. I think they're going to be looking at their offensive line really happy with the moves that they made. So that's the Buccaneers taking Graham Barton. I will give that pick an A as well. And then this one, I've kind of turned myself into a little bit of a Cardinals fan over the last year or so. And I was hoping for a lot more from this pick. The first thing I was hoping and thinking was going to happen is that I thought the Cardinals were going to trade up from 27 to wherever earlier, somewhere somewhere around pick 15 in that area, to just get another really high quality player that would fall. And they ended up picking Darius Robinson. I like Darius Robinson, and I think he's going to fit into this scheme really well. I know that the Cardinals defense, they like having guys you can move around. So that aspect I do like. I just don't know about this. I don't think this was the best move from them. You got a pretty good player at a position of need. To be fair, every position is a position of need for the Cardinals in some manner or another. I don't know. You've got you got Nate Wiggins on the board. Jerzon Newton's on the board. I don't know if we have any other edge rushers, but yeah, we've got some offensive. Like, there's a lot of other stuff I would have considered here. And like I said, I think they're kind of doing a disservice to the team by not trying to trade up here from 27 up to, around 15 and take two guys in this really good class. And, obviously in their mind, they think they did. And I like Darius Robinson. I don't know if I like him in the first round. And for a team like this that needs to add really solid, really good playmakers and just really good talent, like, there are some people talking about them trading back from 4. How much more can we ask the Cardinals to keep trading back and just acquiring late round picks? At some point, you need to start adding some like real talent to this roster, like really good players. And I just don't know if they handled that the best with taking Darius Robinson. I'm going to give it a C-. I think you reached a little bit. To me, this is kind of another situation where it's about value, and it's like you had some other options you totally could have taken here that I like a lot more that are still available. You also had a lot of draft capital and totally had the ability to trade up to take Dallas Turner. Traded up. You could have traded up to 17 instead. You could have traded up for Jared Verse. Quinyon Mitchell at 22. I doubt the Eagles would have gotten out of that, though. And then, like the Dolphins, 20. Like, there's tons of spots that you could have traded up pretty easily. They have a lot of late picks and gotten one of those guys. Actually, in a mock draft I did for fun, without posting, I had them trade up to 12 with the Broncos and had the Broncos trade back to 27 to try to see if they could take Bo Nix there. And I had the Cardinals trade up to 12 to take Quinyon Mitchell. And it wasn't real life, so I can't say that it would be guaranteed to work in real life, especially with that one specifically. But like I said, they have a lot of capital. If they burn even a second round pick and a third next year or something like that to get up in that mix of top 15, give up some real capital to go get a playmaker like that, go get someone on the defense that can really improve it, that would have been great. They didn't do that. We'll see how they handle their day 2 picks. But like I said, I'll give that one a C- for right now. And then the Chiefs. I mentioned earlier with the Lions and Terry and Arnold that there's some teams that can take a player and it'll change my eval on them because of the team. And this is one of them. The Chiefs trading up to 28 with the Bills. Crazy move from the Bills. If I'm the Bills, I'm not giving the Chiefs jack anything at all. Like, nuh-uh. Now, I was really harsh on the Bills when I first saw this move and was really thinking, like, what are they doing? This is horrible. Why would you do this? I still kind of think that. But at the end of the day, they are sitting at pick 33 in the second round. Adonai Mitchell's on the board. Cooper DeJean's on the board. Like, anyone they could want is still there. So they got fortunate in that manner, but they didn't know that was going to happen. So in terms of the Chiefs trading up to get him, I didn't necessarily see Xavier Worthy as like a lock first round, but at the end of the day, it's like we're in the back half of the first round. I don't care that much if you take someone that shouldn't go there. And I know I just called out the Cardinals, but the Cardinals are different because they're a team that sucks that traded for that pick. The Chiefs just won the Super Bowl. So I don't care if teams like that in those like that back half, take a player that maybe wasn't a first rounder and just go for a position of need or something with a lot of high upside. And that's what they did with Xavier Worthy. They are trying to add speed back into this offense. They've been doing their, Rashee Rice and Sky Moore trying to do the dink and dunk. And obviously it worked. They won the Super Bowl, but they really do want to add that element of, they got a quarterback with a mortar on his arm, one of the best throw power ability in the NFL, and best quarterback in the NFL, Patrick Mahomes. So they want to use that to the full extent again. So I see why they want to bring Xavier Worthy in. I can't talk too much trash about this pick. I'll give it an A. I think if any, like many other teams took him at like 28 in that spot, I might even say like, I don't love Xavier Worthy here. I don't think he's all that. I think there's better receivers. I do think Adonai Mitchell is a better receiver, and they could have done that. But again, there's just this aspect of like, you're playing with Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid and everything. I'm sure they're going to work the best way out to use Xavier Worthy. They're going to figure it out. So I'll give it an A. I guess whatever the Chiefs would have taken, I probably would have given an A. And then Tyler Guyton to the Cowboys. I like this pick. This to me is where I saw Tyler Guyton about going, was later in the first round. Probably about, like pick 24 to 32 was kind of his spot in my head. This to me is the Cowboys' chance to have that, perennial long-time starter for a while. It's just going to take the work. It's going to take getting him to understand the position well and understand technique and all that better and apply it to the game. And I talk a lot of smack about the Cowboys, but I'm pretty confident. Again, the grade is changing based off the team. I feel pretty confident they're going to handle Tyler Guyton well, and he's going to do really good work there in the long run. Right now, I don't think you should expect too much, but this is a team that's had Zach Martin, Tyron Smith on the squad for the last decade and a half. Those guys are gone or leaving soon. I don't know if Zach Martin's gone yet, but it's time to start rebuilding that. They want that aspect of what they're known for to remain. So I like this pick from Tyler Guyton, and hopefully some of what they use to get Tyron Smith and Zach Martin developed, they can apply to him also. I didn't give a grade for that pick. I'll give it a B. I talked it up, but I will give it a B because I think there are some other options here. I really love the Adonai Mitchell fit. I wouldn't have minded offensive line here. There were some other offensive linemen they could have taken. I'll give it a B. Yeah, I feel fine with that. All right, and then on to 30 with Nate Wiggins to the Ravens. This one is probably going to be an A-, I think. The only reason it's not an A or A+ or anything is I question... I don't even know if I can give it an A- because apparently no one else saw Adonai Mitchell the same way I and others did. He fell out of the first round completely. With him on the board, I'd have questions about taking him, adding something to the offense with Lamar Jackson that just isn't there. That, size at receiver, they don't have that. And I would have liked to see how that fits in and to add some more weapons. Because I don't think the Ravens' weapons and receiving room is like next level. I really don't. Despite how much work they've put into trying to make that the case, I think one of their issues has been taking all of these 5'10" receivers. And I love Zay Flowers. I think Rashad Bateman is going to be fine. Marquise Brown has done okay. I just think at a point it's like you're taking these 5'9" receivers that aren't necessarily special in any regard. Like Tyreek Hill is kind of small, but he's special. He's got special speed and ability across the board. The Ravens have taken a bunch of receivers that just don't have the most upside, in my opinion. Adonai Mitchell, I could see becoming that true alpha number one for this team that isn't there. So I had some questions about that, but to me, cornerback has been the need this whole time. And then, we saw offensive line become a big need. Well, at this point, I don't know how many offensive linemen I really love that are available. There's, or at least tackles, because there's Jackson Powers-Johnson here. We have Tyler Linderbaum, though. And the guard situation is okay. It would have been nice if there was a tackle here, but there wasn't. So I understand them not going and reaching offensive line and just getting a really good player that honestly fell to you. I think Nate Wiggins did fall a little bit. I could have seen him going a lot earlier than this. All of the corners fell, though, so you can't really just tag it on him. But Nate Wiggins is a phenomenal athlete. Obviously, that 40 time was crazy, but he's really fluid in coverage. His hips are really flexible, and he can flip them with ease. His stop-start is incredible. he, as I said, with like fluidity, just the way he moves in open space and can just lock on to like some of his best plays are just off, not pressing, playing zone, playing in a flat or even man or whatever. Then you get a hitch on the boundary. He kind of falls off a little bit, and then his recovery speed is so good, and he gets the ball knocked out or picks it off more often than not. And most of that is his athleticism, and he's got some things that other guys don't have. The other thing that is awesome about Nate Wiggins is he is 20 years old right now. So I see Nate Wiggins as someone with starting potential now, but also with his age and traits and everything. This is someone I see being on the team for a very long time, hopefully. And I'm gonna give this pick an A. I'm talking myself into it just being an A. I like Adonai Mitchell, but this makes a lot of sense too. And I wasn't necessarily on board with going receiver, but Adonai Mitchell came into mind a lot, but I love this Nate Wiggins pick. He is a little small. One thing about Nate Wiggins I think people get wrong is that he's like bad in run coverage or he doesn't try. This dude puts effort in. Like he does. He'll come up and pop you in the run game. He loves being physical and aggressive. One of the things I love most about him, go cut on the film if you want. Not only will he come up and pop you, but he's going to get in your ear afterwards too. And I like his mentality. I like how often I see him talking and getting in people's faces and stuff. Not pushing it necessarily, but he is that dude and he knows it. And that's a really good fit to the Ravens defense and core as a whole. I really like this pick. I'm a Ravens fan. I don't know if everyone knows that. So as a fan, as a delusional fan that either hates everything their franchise does or loves it, depending on the situation, I have good feelings about this. I don't think this was the best pick in the entire draft or anything. I'm trying not to be delusional, but no, I don't have any hate for this pick at all. Great pickup for us. Ricky Pearsall to the 49ers. I see it. This is kind of your, not that he has the same potential and is going to be the same player, but this is kind of your Brandon Ayuk replacement. They do a lot of things very similarly. They can, both of them win at all three levels and have really good route running. Catching is there. Solid athletes. Good run after catch. Neither Ricky or Brandon Ayuk are burners, so I don't want to hound in too much on them being like incredibly similar players, but they do both have similar styles to their game that I like, and it does kind of tell me we're probably going to see a Brandon Ayuk trade at some point pretty soon here. I can't give this an A or an A- or anything like that. I think offensive line is just a really big need. And there aren't a lot of offensive linemen here, but we are at pick 31. And if they went ahead and just kind of reached on someone like Kingsley Suamataia, listen, you got Trent Williams. Kingsley Suamataia and Trent Williams, like, I'm sure he'll help him figure it out. So, yeah, I have questions with this pick because the offensive line to me was a huge need. We also do have, it doesn't have to be tackle. I've mentioned this a few times, like Jack and Power Johnson is still here. So I know you don't see the value in taking a center in the first round. Receiver is a bigger priority, but we keep mentioning this receiver class and saying there's plenty of guys you can get later. And I think they could have done that maybe with that, but I'll give this pick a B. Yeah, I don't hate it. And then Xavier Legette to the Carolina Panthers. This is one I feel like I can ring the bell on for myself because this is something I've been predicting to happen, and it's also something I've been saying they very well should do. The Panthers, I think we're going to see a completely different Panther squad this next season. First of all, you get the coach, you get Canales in, and then you get Deontay Johnson, who's one of the best separators in the league. I mean that. He's not one of the best receivers overall. He is one of the best separators in the league, which was your biggest issue last year in terms of the receiving core. You still have Adam Thielen, who's fine. He's older, but he did okay last year. He was the shining spot. They fixed the offensive line. Unfortunately, they lost Brian Burns, but we'll see what they do on the defense. The offensive line got suited up a lot better. And then I look at the offense and I'm like, okay, you want a tight end, you want a fullback. I don't see you taking either of those here. You probably want another receiver. You got 2 younger guys, and Jonathan Mingo and who's the dude from LSU? Terrace Marshall Jr. Just got Deontay Johnson, so you've got some good rotation there. Adam Thielen, whatever. Let's put him over to the side. And then you throw in Xavier Legette, who is 6'2", shredded, 220-something pounds, runs a 4.39, catches everything deep down the field. He's one of the best jump ball receivers in this draft. And to me, it's perfect. I think they've handled this rebuild of the team and trying to not let their first-round pick go to waste. I got really scared last year that they broke Bryce. I did. Because Bryce has always been a deep ball thrower. He's been really good at it. He's not scared to do it. Going back to college, he's fine with throwing the deep ball. He can do it, and he wants to when it's there. And then after the season, his first rookie year with the Panthers, where we saw no ability for anyone to get open down the field or make catches down the field, he didn't have enough time to wait for anything to get open down the field. At a point, we stopped seeing him look downfield and stopped trying downfield at all. Just really far downfield on deep tosses, I mean. Not just, in general, but... So that was concerning me that they broke him. I hope that isn't the case, and I don't feel like it will be, especially when you got a guy like Xavier Legette and this offensive line is looking a lot better. So, really, I want to give the Panthers their props because they went out and made a really big move to trade up to number 1 and take a 5'9" quarterback that I love and a lot of people loved, and I was a big believer in him. But they went out of their way, traded up to number 1 to get him. They have this total flop of a season that just makes everything look like it's gone to crap. And you're kind of thinking, like, how do they recover from this? How do you move forward now? Like, you might have just ruined the quarterback you took, and this roster has nothing, and you don't have a first-round pick. Well, at this point now, with how they worked through free agency, getting Xavier Legette in the first round, you get him for 5 years, including that fifth-year option. All of this, I got to hand it to him. And I loved the Dave Canale signing. That's a guy I've been kind of pounding the table for a little bit as being a really quality head coach in the NFL, or the potential to be that. Yeah. Great job, Panthers. If you're a Panther fan listening to this, I know this was a rough year, but you have a lot to look forward to now. And we're going to get into the second round and see even more of what they do. I don't think they have a second-round pick, though, now. They shouldn't, because their second-round pick was 33. I don't think they have a second-round pick. So I guess you got to wait till the third round, but it's fine. Anyways, that is going to wrap this video up. It was a little bit longer than I intended. I'll probably cut it down a decent bit. The second round of the draft has not happened yet to me. By the time this is up, it'll probably happen. I'm really excited for it. Let me know what you guys thought of the draft, your opinions on the players taken, what your team did. Let me know what you thought of how your team did in this draft overall. If you like the picks they make, if you were upset, if you are a Falcons fan, I'll leave a suicide hotline number down below. Yeah, let me know, and thank you for watching.